Welcome to this edition of the Conclusive Remark, a joint initiative of JNVLIVE and DATELINE Gujarat, which can be accessed on the YouTube handle Talking Economics with Dr. Vyas. In recent past, we saw there has been an incident of a bridge collapse at Mumbai. This puts a big question on urbanization. And today's topic is definitely urbanization, because there have been lots of voices which said that the bridge collapsed because a lot of manpower which started walking on that bridge. And we have with us, he needs no more introduction, Dr. JAY NARAYAN VYAS, an economist, a thinker and a statesman. We'll be talking with him, we'll be questioning, and this is going to be a kind of an ongoing communication as to what is this urbanization and how it is putting pressure on the urban infrastructure with opportunities to create new urban infrastructure and address these pressure gaps. Dr. Vyas, if we talk of urbanization, what is the scenario when you talk of urbanization in India? You know, because this Mumbai bridge collapse incident has really triggered and sparked lots of issues. And urbanization on one hand has its own advantages. It gives you a manpower for the kind of service sector or kind of manufacturing sector you need from the rural belts coming to India in search of a better life. But equally, it is putting pressures on the urban infrastructure. So what is the scenario of urbanization in India, and how do you see this urbanization?
See, what we now have started labeling as urbanization is not that recent a phenomenon.
Okay.
From long times, if you look at the ancient history,
okay,
those centers which are either the centers for economic activity like trade or commerce or the seat of power,
okay,
they always attracted people to go there and settle down, because a lot of manpower is required for these activities.
True.
And secondly, this manpower requirement rewarded them also adequately. Good returns and better lifestyle.
Better livelihood.
So this is urbanization now. We call them cities. Earlier they called it Nagar.
Nagar, true.
So it is not something that there were no major settlements of this kind earlier. But with the increase in population, obviously the urban centers which we now talk about have also swollen in population.
True.
And also the activities which they undertook.
Okay.
Now, if you look at the scenario which is today, and if you specifically were wanting to discuss in context with India,
yeah.
But before coming to that, let me say that this economy and search of opportunities or the administrative necessities driven settlements called cities and then urbanization.
Yeah.
Today, if you talk about 2018, 55% of the world population stayed in such urban centers.
Cities, you mean to say?
Yes,
okay.
And in by 2050, the projections are that 68%, means 2/3 population on this globe
of the globe will be living in the cities.
Will be living in the cities. Now, what is the concentration right now? Northern America, 82% of the population lives in urban centers.
Urban India. I mean the urban America.
Urban centers.
Yep.
Latin America and the Caribbean, you talk about 81%. Europe, 74%. And Oceania, 68%. So, the countries which we pronounce as the centers which are today, the centers of development or centers of economic activity,
or the developed nations, you mean?
Or the developed nations,
yeah.
They have always been experiencing this phenomena of more and more people migrating to the urban centers, leaving their rural habitats. Now, if you talk about Asia, it is approximately half the population, because Asia has a different kind of a scenario in terms of economic development.
Okay.
So it has a lot of poor population. If you go to the poorest of the lot, that is Africa, 43% of the population
lives in the urban
areas. Now,
so these are kind of reverse examples than what is happening in the developed nations.
No, these are the examples which you should take as something which will be happening now.
Okay.
Say, if you say that you have 91% or 82% of the population staying in urban centers, there is very little scope that from 82% you will go to 83%, 84%.
Right.
Difficult.
Okay.
But if you say 50%, and with the Asia rising, again, if you look at the major development from after Christ to 1820, India and China accounted for more than half the wealth of the world, half the GDP of the world.
Half the GDP of the world.
By 1820, the Latin America, Europe started rising. That was the era when steam engine was invented, mechanization, the mechanical appliances came into being. The firepower also increased with these nations.
The industrial revolution, what you call it.
Yes. So from there on, India and China started losing their place. Dipping in 1979, India and China put together accounted for only 10% of the GDP of the world. From there, it has again started going up. Today, China accounts for 23.5% of the GDP of the world, and India almost around 8%. So put together, they already have gone to a level of 1/3 of the GDP. Now, this phenomena is happening. In that scenario, now more and more economic activity is going to be taking place in these countries, especially which are going to be the activity centers of the future. As it is rightly said, that 21st century is likely and going to belong to Asia, and in Asia, India and China once again have a potential to regain their lost glory, crossing 50% of the GDP of the world. So today, yes, Asia 50% and less, but then it will grow. Urbanization will continue and more population will migrate through urban center. Now let's come to the situation in India, which I will be a little more elaborate in explaining that. 1901, only 11.4% of the people stayed in urban India. There were very few urban centers like Calcutta, Mumbai, Delhi, which could be considered.
And the capital cities of India.
Yes, which could be considered as the urban centers. By 2001, that is almost 100 years thereafter, 28.53. 10 years.
That's more than double, I suppose.
It's more than double.
Near to triple.
Yes. By 2011, that is next 10 years, it went to 30.16.
That's just a meager.
But from 2011 to 2017, it jumped to 34%. So what happened in a decade between 2001 and 2011, more than double happened in just 6 years.
6 years.
2011 to 2017. And projections are that by 2050, that is if we talk about the current scenario at 35%, 2050, 60%. So another 30 years, this will almost be
double.
Little less than the double. But then the process of urbanization, you will not be able to escape. And the pace at which urbanization will be taking place will be also considerably large, and you'll have to cope up with the issues which will be the fallout effects of this urbanization.
But this brings to me a beautiful question, the way your numbers are there today on the board.
Yes.
60% of the population of India are going to stay in the urban centers.
Yes.
The connectivity is taking place.
Yes.
The automation is taking place.
Yes.
Would this mean that there would be requirement of more manpower in these areas in a service sector or the manufacturing economy, or would it be again that kind of inspiration to live a better life?
See, quite a few of the world-renowned economists have said that the future lies in concentrating on manufacturing sector, which will throw more jobs. Value addition and employment potential in that sector is more. Now, if that is to happen, this certainly will throw more opportunities at these centers. Second is that centers like Delhi are also additionally growing because of the seat of power being there. Now compare the Calcutta of earlier days, when that was the golden era for Calcutta, when East India Company had their headquarters at Calcutta, and they were virtually ruling India from there. Calcutta was the best urban center in India.
It's one of the biggest trading hubs and port and everything.
But let the political center, activity center or center of governorship to Delhi,
Delhi.
Continuously there is a deterioration in Calcutta's economy
Yeah.
and also the rate at which it used to grow. So prosperity and the rate at which it used to grow. This is the ideal example. Bangalore is yet another example where the IT industry became a sort of
magnet to attract
the manpower, which was in the areas of IT and software development.
True.
So there are different reasons for the different centers. So if you look at Surat in Gujarat, diamond industry, textile industry, powerloom industry.
I think the cities were not planned for that kind of a population rush actually.
No.
Even Bangalore, if you say IT, 5,000 companies.
See, Bangalore is having its own problem. For a long time, people of Bangalore went on complaining about terrible traffic jams.
True.
Reaching airport was becoming difficult. Now I think they are taking some steps to ease that situation. But nonetheless, you cannot cope up with the. Bombay has tried to. If you look at the ceiling bridge connection, now the new connections which are
even the connection between central Mumbai and the south Mumbai through the tunnel. I mean, it takes 45 minutes to reach from any point in Bombay.
Yes.
With the kind of public transportation system which they have developed.
But then, let us not be over optimistic about all these things.
Yes.
You will have all these things, and yet the rate at which these centers are growing. There was some study I remember made by SAPT University at Ahmedabad, which said that by 2050, to accommodate the traffic going to Gandhinagar, you will need 16 lane roads. Now, today we are talking about third lane,
8 lane roads
being added. So you will have to add another 5 lanes on each side. Sure. So 8 lane each side, you will. Even then, the SAPT University study says that you will not be able to accommodate the traffic. So understand, this is one example I have given. There are examples of water supply, quality, and also the quantum that you need.
I mean, the drainage, the water, the sewage, everything.
Everything is bursting at seams.
It's just not traffic. It's just people coming in doing activity and puts a pressure on your ability.
Yes, they are bursting at seams, and the reason is, instead of following the plan-led growth, we are following the growth-led plan. So we permit the settlements to take place,
and then we
start worrying about, once the society comes up, we will worry about the roads, we will worry about the drainage, we will worry about. Then the worst part is that the urban societies, now they are seeing another phenomena, that those ground floor bungalows or nice dwellings are now being sacrificed for multi-story buildings. Now what will happen? You have one bungalow where a family of 6 was staying, the requirement for water was very limited, the drainage they threw out was also very limited, the power they required was also very limited. Now all of a sudden, you have a huge multi-story building, 2 towers, each having some 60 blocks, so 120 families staying there. You can imagine what kind of load it will need. And this is the load that you need. Are the supply lines ready for supplying such loads, even if there is a power?
Sure.
Even if there is a drainage line available, is the drainage line ready to take that additional load? I think we'll have to talk about this and worry about it in a greater details. We'll also have to worry about the aging infrastructure in this centers.
That's true.
Say Ahmedabad, there are water lines which are below ground. Now some of them are rusted. There are now regular incidences of hepatitis E. That is because of the sewer lines getting mixed with the water lines. Their effluent getting mixed with the sewage getting mixed with the water lines. Now these incidences are going to be increasing in the times to come, and you will not be able to repair them, because most of the places, even if you know that there is a leakage there or there is a problem there are a lot of unauthorized settlements and sometimes even planned buildings which do not permit you to go below the ground. What will happen to them?
Precisely. And again, if this triggers an epidemic, again, you don't have that sort of kind of cluster of hospitals to address that area.
I shudder to imagine that, you don't need bomb to destroy Ahmedabad. You simply stop water supply to Ahmedabad for 7 days. The sewer lines, which will not flow sewer, there will be methane which will be coming out, which will your manhole covers will just be blown off like the corks of the bottle.
True.
The bacteria and other possible things which will create a hell.
A kind of scientific process.
And more people will die than any other destructive weapon. So we should not underestimate the potential of these kind of things happening in even existing city centers.
Yeah, but I mean, let me come to this question at the last of the topic on the kind of a reverse migration which is happening from the cities to the villages. But meanwhile, let me talk on what are the traits, what are the urban traits when you talk of the urban migration or the urban immigration happening. What are the traits basically?
See, the word trait itself explains what you're asking me. Urban traits means the centers which are having the lifestyle and facilities and more or less the availability of the infrastructure which are like any urban center. Mostly their urban trade centers develop on the periphery of the urban center. Number of times their load also falls on the existing urban centers. So if you talk about Gujarat, for example, if you talk about the population which is staying in urban centers, it may be around 45%. I'm not exactly sure about it. But if you look at the population with urban traits, it is almost 2/3 of the population of Gujarat, which is staying either at urban centers or centers with the urban traits. So it's a huge issue. It is not now a very limited issue which touches a small population. Any government of the day or any governments of the future will have to deal with 2/3 of the population which will have problems of water supply, problems of sewerage, problems of transport,
the basic civic issues and the basic civic
amenities which are bursting at seams. And it will need huge investment to create these facilities.
We're not taking climate change into account over here. If we take that, I mean, the situation
it is an additional factor. But even we consider everything else normal and only sort of plan for some basic necessities to provide minimum infrastructure, that is roads, transport, electricity, water and drainage. I think it will need huge investments for these urban trade centers which will be slowly but surely mingling with the urban centers, creating their own problems.
Dr. Vyas, when we talk of the biggest impact of the urbanization, you have highlighted this thing on a periphery, and I would like to just, blow it not out of proportion, but let us talk on the real facts. When you talk of the urban migration and its impacts, the biggest socio-economic impact which you see is what?
It is huge.
Okay.
You go to any urban center, there are economic activities, no doubt. Sometimes it is said that in Bombay or even in Surat, you search the mud and you'll get money.
True.
There is no dearth of economic activity.
True.
But then concomitant infrastructure and other facilities. So if I can give you or explain to you with an example, if some labor family or a lower income group family staying in slum like Dharavi or Worli Kolivada or Sion in Mumbai or in the Basti areas in Delhi, 8x10 size room, 6-member family. So the hygienic conditions are not there. Some of them will have continuous problems of breathing, continuous problems of other diseases. So the disease burden is heavy. And if out of this family the bread earner falls sick, or somebody who was supporting the bread earner loses the job, and there are children who are hungry, a person will ferry, pardon me for saying so, even a box of RDX for 500 rupees.
Which you already mentioned.
Let me tell you, he doesn't belong to any community. He belongs to a community of poor, community of haveless.
Sure.
So on one hand, you have in the very same city an example where some family stays in 4,700 crore worth of dwelling house and celebrates and lives like kings. There are teeming millions, I would say, in that very city who are surviving on the trash. So I think these people will have to sooner than the later understand that what is said in Gujarati, Bhukhya janono jatharaagni jagshe, khandero ni bhasma kari na lache. When the poor takes to street, you will find it difficult to survive. You will not find how to run from even your 4,700 crore worth of dwelling. So you must understand what kind of showmanship you are making. You gift somebody 450 crore worth of house. Somebody goes for a destination wedding, spends hundreds of crores there. Somebody does something for which there are huge expenses. Now, these are examples of selected few families in India, which hardly are 2% of the population.
Sure.
These 2% of the population enjoy 70% of the wealth. And if that is the scenario, what happens to remaining 98% and what happens to the bottommost 40%? That remains to be seen. It is good that still in India, we believe in fate. If something good is happening to me, I feel I am lucky. If something bad is happening to me, I feel that God is not kind to me. Maybe they are sins of my last birth that I am paying for. So there is no such anger outburst.
But then, Dr. Vyas, this poses the biggest challenge, what I understand, is to the law and order situation.
It is.
It is. So how do you refine that? You know, when you talk of
the governments of the day have remained where they were, more or less.
Okay.
See, if you look at Gujarat, the police force that you have is hardly sufficient to take care of the requirement of the. It's less than 3 lakh police which is maintaining law and order for 8 crore people. And then, in the name of democracy, you have these political leaders have misbehaved with the police, misbehaved with the administrators, made them behave in public as if they are servants to them, not to the public. And that fear that earlier a police worthy used to carry with it has been destroyed in the name of so-called democracy. It is not democracy at all. The law and order situation is part of the basic requirement. I can tell you one thing. You know, there is the late Cabinet Secretary of Government of India, T.R.S. Subramaniam. He has authored one book. I'm not exactly remembering the title, but it is something like In the Land of Netadoms and Babudoms.
Yes.
Where he mentions one incident, which is very, very eye-opening, that how law and order situation was dealt with by earlier administration, how earlier administrators perceived this issue. He said when he became a collector, he said, I went to pay my respects to the Chief Secretary. And then he writes, Mr. Puri from ICS looked younger than his age. In the privacy of his chamber, he offered me a cup of coffee and a cigarette, and then volunteered with the advice that if you sleep with Gram Sevikas, but do it discreetly, I don't mind. But if you fail to maintain law and order, I will finish you. Now, this was the importance. And he said, I remember the same and issued similar orders since the first part, when I took over as the Chief Secretary of Uttar Pradesh, aftermath of the Babri demolition. So, law and order is a basic. Any governance is good governance if you have people. See, Chanakya, what does he say? That the ideal kingdom and the ideal rule is where the trader can do lot of trade and trade endlessly, where the women can enjoy all the festivals and festivities, putting on lot of ornaments, where the people can sleep virtually without locking their doors. Now, this is the basic requirement. Government must deliver governance. If you fail to deliver governance, if you fail to maintain law and order, if you are partisan to certain particular issues, that these are our ideology, and whatever happens, we will not take any action. Or if you politicalize, the worst part is you politicalized in past several years. The IAS and IPS stands thoroughly politicalized.
True.
So when that happens, the scenario, add on to that the difficult issues which now the urbanization is going to pose, and the kind of law and order problem, as well as I will add further internal security problems it is going to throw out. This is going to be a very, very difficult time, and with the demoralized administrators, demoralized police force and useless politicians in most of the cases, you will not be able to take care of this issue, because basic perception is not there.
True. But in the core of these issues, what you said, apart from urbanization, the biggest thing which I understand is the land and real estate and housing. How do you see urbanization really posing a threat to the areas of housing, or putting a pressure, on the kind of real estate? Real estate prices go up, housing demand picks up. But then how are these issues
See, when you
with the increasing urbanization? And rightly you said, we don't work on the plans of urbanization, we work on the urbanization and then we plan it.
Yes.
So how do you see this?
See, when you are short of a product, today in India, we are short of about 50 million houses. Now, if that is the shortage, obviously, when there is a product which is in short supply, the suppliers or the manufacturers will dictate the prices. So the real estate prices are going to go up, and they have been going up all around, maybe in a different varying degrees. The issue is not that. The issue is other cities in the world like Tokyo, New York or London have sorted these issues by creating
precisely
proper infrastructure and then going for skyscrapers, relieving the land of the burden that it was otherwise going to have with a lesser FSI. So you create more open spaces, go vertically, have concomitant infrastructure which is quality infrastructure, as you have in Singapore, as you have in Tokyo, as you have in Shanghai, as you have in London, as you have in New York. You will not be able to make. I have no dream.
In Gujarat, Jamnagar is exception. Most of your cities have grown.
Why?
Jamnagar, because you don't have, on one side you have defense, on the other side you have industries, on the third side you have sea. And that's the reason Jamnagar has grown vertically.
Yes.
But the biggest issue of urbanization is that today a member of parliament in that constituency falls into a gutter.
See, this is increasingly going to happen. Let us accept the fact.
Okay.
Useless administration, more focus on politicalization, less focus on governance by the politicians of the day, and then the huge resources that are required. Not that there is a dearth of resources.
Okay.
They are not being planned properly, and there is a lot of midway leakages.
So it's overcrowding which is creating an issue in governance as well in managing the available landscape also.
It's a very, very complex issue to look at it in isolation, that somebody can miraculously solve the problem if he is a good politician. No, it will not happen.
But sir, if the urbanization has really worked in India rightly, the way you said, that growth is happening by 2050, we see that 60% of India will be in urban locations. Why the issue of unemployment?
See, understand this situation. Any developed economy.
Yes.
Agriculture has almost no role in GDP.
Okay.
Service sector has the maximum GDP.
Okay.
Now, India also, the service sector is now accounting for 60% of the GDP.
Okay.
Rest 40% by agriculture and industry. So, obviously, where there are opportunities, people will go towards that.
So it's a magnet.
It's a magnet.
It is polluting. It is creating a scarce resources in terms of education, health,
everything,
basic civic requirements, and even putting a pressure on your environment, your quality of air.
My personal belief is, even being in the government and being part of the governance, I believe that the governments of the day should focus on basic issues like health, education, and the safety, that is law and order. The fourth is the infrastructure. That's all.
Okay.
The issues which are not of the government, a lot of those issues, public sector was created during the time of Jawaharlal Nehru. It was required because there are no capital markets developed. There is no point in now governments going on in the name of signing the MOUs and going on for the public sector. No point in going for that.
No, but I have gone on that. Let me tell you, I have moved from Ahmedabad to Rajkot. Another 2 years I plan to move from Rajkot to Dwarka. So giving that example, I said I'll take this point at a last. I see that the reverse urbanization has started happening.
No,
people who have houses in good places are moving back to those places, to those roots.
I will not buy your argument.
Okay.
Those who are lucky like you,
Okay.
who can work with the internet,
Okay.
for whom working location is not a constraint,
Okay.
who can operate in the cyberspace, will only have this liberty.
Okay.
Not for those who are working in location bound activities like industries or
service
like
sector.
transport or
I
like
understand.
any other
I understand.
transport sector. So all are not going to be.
All are not going to be
You
there.
are an exceptionally lucky person.
After 2 years, I may even switch off my cell phone. You never know.
I think there is a good case for additionally putting 30% more income tax on your earnings.
I don't actually earn that much that you need to put additional 30% for breathing a good quality air. So
Yes.
let me breathe a good quality free of cost air.
Yes.
But what are the suggestions, Dr. Vyas? We end up this discussion. This discussion brought an economist, Dr. Jay Narayan Vyas, and a statesman and a thinker, Dr. Jay Narayan Vyas, who indicated lots of area, right from even your sewage pipes likely to blow out. I mean, if you don't take a proper care. But then, what are the solutions?
See, there are no rapid fire solutions.
No, that I understand. There are long-term solutions. What are the long-term solutions for this reckless urbanization?
The first solution is accept the problem.
Okay.
That's the first thing.
Accept that you are sick.
Accept
that you are sick.
Yes.
And you take a medicine.
Then diagnose.
Okay.
Draw a plan. And then whatever bloody political party you may belong to, implement it ruthlessly, because if you can go to Hong Kong or Singapore and you can put the wrapper of the chocolate after eating the chocolate, no, in your pocket if there is no dustbin around.
Yeah.
And here, in the name of democracy, let me tell you before I conclude, democracy in this country has become a passport to misbehave. I am not in support of the autocracy. I am not in support of those who are tom-tomming from the rooftops saying that, oh, this person is the savior. No, that is not the case.
You need to be self-disciplined.
But as a people, you should be self-disciplined. Nani Palkhiwala, we end with his quote. He has said that India is like donkey laden with golden bars.
Okay.
The donkey doesn't know the worth and value of the gold.
Okay.
Nonetheless, it feels the load of it. We have a lot of opportunity. We are loaded with the golden bar. Lot of opportunity, lot of manpower. 70% of the population.
We are going on that curve again, where China and India can regain that lost glory.
You are on a rising
curve.
trajectory, rising curve. Threshold has already been overcome. The plane has taken off.
True.
At that juncture, if you have a bad governance, if you have lack of, and I will not blame politicians, because politicians alone are not responsible for the state of things which we are having today. If you take a bucket of water from any river with a steel bucket, with a gold bucket, with a silver bucket, or with an earthen bucket, the water inside the bucket will not change. It is the same. Similarly, the civil servants, the politicians, the traders, the merchants, the industrialists, the farmers, they all come from the same society, the same water that you are taking in different kind of vessels, and then you are trying to define that, hey, this vessel should have better water. No, unless the society at large improves, unless the society develops the self-discipline that no, we will not do this, we will not tolerate this, and we are responsible for ourselves. No government, there are no quick solutions to the problem. There is no magic wand that somebody will descend down from the heaven. Let me end with saying that Lord Sri Krishna has said that Paritranaye sadhunam vinashaya cha dishkritam dharma sansthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. I think when he said this, he must not have realized what kind of value deteriorated, responsibility deteriorated, society in India would be thriving. If he takes the birth, I think he himself will, after seeing all this thing, commit suicide. This is the situation.
This brings me to the last question. I mean, when you talk of the solutions for the reckless urbanization, you said you need to accept that there is a kind of a sickness, you need to diagnose it, you need to have the solutions for that. What are the learning lessons, barring Africa and Asia? I mean, Asia, some countries, yes. And the way you've seen the urbanization graph very high in US, in Europe, in Caribbean countries, or probably in the Oceanian region. So what are the learning lessons from there?
Learning lessons
that
are...
They don't, I mean, your Sydney is a 24/7 center. Sydney is 24/7, but you don't really feel the pressure of urbanization in Sydney.
No, you'll not feel. Yeah, Australia is again a different class.
Okay.
But other places.
Let me mention this thing. Australia, again, an island built by the convicts.
Yes.
That's what always surprises
whatever it
me.
is. But then it is having lot of huge area. Australia is one country in the world which cannot be attacked. Australia can be reached only by, in the present day scenario, Japan, and they have treaty with Japan.
True.
So it's one of those 10 countries which are difficult to attack.
Okay.
Now, look at the other countries. They have created, see, when there was a recession after World War II, the US took a considered decision of building roads and bridges right across.
Horizontally, vertically.
That is what is paying them today. Quality work, go vertical, leave lot of open spaces, permit those pastures, permit those greenery to be there. You know,
that's the reason you can have Las Vegas in Texas.
You are losing your forest cover.
True.
There was a US president who said, at no cost we will permit the Grand Canyons and their beauty to be destroyed for sake of attracting the tourists. So you should understand that you have not inherited this earth. What you are doing is you are borrowing from the minds of, from the mouths of future generation. So we are, I would say, to a great extent, an irresponsible civilization, irresponsible country who doesn't believe, and up you go. You have more ability and capability, and you take pride in breaking laws in that society. Forget about any.
No, but what are the learning lessons for the government and the people?
Learning lesson
from
is
these developed countries and
learning lesson.
Rapidly urbanized.
First
centers.
Learning lesson is yes, it can be remedied.
Okay.
Second, it will need discipline. Third, it will need technology.
Thorough planning.
It will need technology and expertise, not only for planning, for implementation as well.
True.
It will need speed at which it can be implemented. It will need implementing machinery which is as sharp as a razor edge to see that nothing goes wrong. And finally, lot of money.
Okay.
Resources.
That's the big thing.
So it's not the big thing. It can be planned. I would say money is the last thing that is a constraint. If you have a will, there is a way.
There is a way. So this brings us to the conclusive remark and the conclusion of this series on urbanization. The way Dr. Vyas said that we need to be disciplined, we need to be, there is no government in the world which can implement discipline on you. We need to be disciplined citizens. Equally, the government needs to play a role that admit that there is a sickness, get it diagnosed and find solutions to it. Do a kind of a planning, not based after urbanization, but plan it in such a manner that how can you best accommodate the masses which are kind of moving to the urban centers and putting pressure on the urban infrastructure. This will create a win-win situation for the job seekers. It will give employment. Equally, it will create it will put a lot of things in a place in urban infrastructure, not creating a pressure in areas of education, health and the basic civic services which are required by a consumer who comes for dreaming a good life to live in the city. With this, we come to the conclusion of this conclusive remark program on urbanization. See you next time. Do stay tuned on the YouTube handle of Talking Economics with Dr. Vyas, and do keep us sending your suggestion. Thank you once again.
Let us understand, friends, the issues which are being thrown out today by the urbanization, reckless urbanization, are more dangerous than the destruction a war can bring to you. We are already on a path, or we are treading a path which is too dangerous. Still, I would not say we must lose hope. We must act fast and act with determination. There is always a solution if you have a will.
We have always seen such issues of collapsing of a footbridge or maybe a restaurant at a fire, and we have seen people losing their lives for no reasons. Wishing you all happy days ahead, safe and peaceful days ahead, and do stay tuned to our YouTube handles and keep on suggesting and commenting as to what better improvement we need to bring in and the kind of topics we need to discuss. Thank you once again.
Thank you.